All right, welcome guys. We're going to go over a couple of Excel tips and tricks that are going to help you complete Lab 1 and future labs as well. These are just some really good basic Excel tips as well as going into some formulas that you'll need to know. So the outline today, we're just going to do a little bit of this presentation and I'll take you right into the data set that we're going to work with. So we're going to look at some basic Excel functions such as using the filter, removing duplicates, and sorting data. Then we're going to talk about the formulas that you need to use for lab. And we're going to put it all together for your Lab 1 assignment and going further for Lab 2 or 3. Let's get into it. All right, so examining our data with filter. So first and foremost, you need to know how to find these functions and also how to use them. So once you've opened Excel and you've got your data set up, this is the data set we'll be working with, you want to select all cells by clicking the arrow in the top left corner. When you click this, it selects everything in the sheet that you're currently working on, and that's what we want to do. So once we've done that, we leave it all highlighted. We want to go to the Data tab up top. So you see all of these different menu options. We want to click on Data, and that opens these options up here. Move that. And then once we're in Data, we want to click on Filter. And as soon as you click on Filter, you'll see these little arrows pop up. You'll see them on the next slide for each of our columns that have information or data in the cells. So why do we want to do this? When we use filter, we can quickly see the range of values in each column. So I want you to try this for yourself and enable filter and then go to like insecticide used or something like that and click on the little drop down arrow. And a window pops up and it gives you a list of all of the unique values that can be found in that column. Another reason we might want to use this is that it'll allow us to quickly select rows that contain certain values. So say we wanted to look at start year, but we only wanted to see everything that happened in 2015. We could click on our little drop down arrow. It'd bring up our little window again, show us all the years that were in that column. And we could just click on 2015 and everything else would disappear. It wouldn't be deleted, but it would just show us what was there while hiding everything else. So that's one reason why you might want to use filter. And I believe there's a question in your lab that this might be very useful for. So keep that in mind. All right, so moving on, extracting unique values and sorting them. So what we want to do with this, we start by not highlighting everything, but we want to select our single column of interest by clicking on the very top letter here. So when we click on, say, C, it's going to highlight everything all the way down just in that column. And once we do that, we want to hit Control C or right click and select Copy from the drop-down menu that appears because we want to just copy all of these values. Once we've hit copy somehow, we want to paste our new column to the right of our data somewhere. And for us, we're just selected column L here. This new column that appears is a complete copy of what was in column C. So that includes all of the duplicates that were originally there. And remember, we want to just see what our unique values are. And when we're looking at end year, that means we want to end up with a short list of just the years that were in there with no repeats. So once we have got our new column here, and while it's still highlighted, we want to go back to the Data tab, again, like we were here before, and we want to hit Remove Duplicates. So what that'll do for us is it'll end up with just a very short list. So instead of seeing 2015, 20, 50, 100 times, we'll just see it once. And unfortunately, when we remove duplicates, it doesn't sort. It doesn't sort this automatically. So we just have a list of years in whatever order they appeared in the column. What we want to do, especially when we're talking about years, and especially for this lab, we want to make sure that those years are in the correct order. So once we've hit remove duplicates, we go right over to this sort button. And it pulls up a window with a couple of options, and you want to hit smallest to largest. Now I know I've sort of like not shown you these windows. We're going to go into Excel and you'll see me do this. So you'll see what the windows look like as they pop up. So don't be alarmed that you can't see them now. You're going to see them soon. All right. So formulas. How formulas work. Let's move that. When we're working with Excel, oftentimes we want to perform some sort of mathematical function on our data because it's not just enough to look at the data and see that it's there. We want to analyze it somehow. We want to get some information on what's going on with this data. What does it mean? So for our labs, we're going to use a couple of pretty basic ones. We're going to focus on the average function, the sum function, and the count function. So each of these functions, you would enter them into a cell. You would select other cells that have data in it that you want to perform this function on. And once you hit enter and complete the formula, it spits you out a result. So these guys perform mathematical functions on selected cells. In this case, they find the average. They'll sum all of the numbers to give you one sum of all the selected cells. Or maybe you want to count how many cells are in a group. So that's what these guys do. And in the case of average, and this is kind of how things will look when we go through them in Excel, when you type in average and give those parentheses, it kind of guides you into what it wants you to put in, what it accepts as the input. And for this case, say we wanted to average all of the cells in range A to A. That's the whole column of A. And I'll show you this in Excel as well. Now, getting a little bit more complicated, we've got our average if, sum if, and count if. So these guys perform the same mathematical functions they did before, but only if the selected cells meet a single criteria. So in this case, we're looking at, say, the average again. Average if, our range and our criteria, and our average range. So in this case, we're still averaging the values that we found in column A, but we want to look at a different column to see if a specific value is found tied to that column. And that's going to be important when we're looking at dates and things like that. And this can be a little bit difficult to conceptualize before you actually see it in action. So I will be showing you how this works as well. And then even more complicated, average ifs, you see that S on the end, sum ifs, and count ifs. So these, again, still perform that same mathematical function, but now they'll only perform it if the cells meet multiple criteria. So say you want to average everything in column A that also happened in a specific year and also had a specific pesticide. So there's two criteria that need to happen in order for the value in column A to be included in our average. And this is how the function asks you to put input in. So we've got our first range and our first criteria. We've got our second range and our second criteria. Oops. And then finally the average range. So what's pretty cool about this is that you can put as many criteria in there as you want. It just gets kind of difficult to keep track of that once you get beyond a certain number of criteria, because these formulas can get really, really long. So we're just focusing on just a couple. All right, so putting it together for lab 1, we're going to be counting countries. And this is the instructions that you have in your lab manual. So I'm going to go through each of these and show you how I do it with a modified data set. So when I do the counts on my Excel sheet, they will be different than what you have in your data set. And I'm not going to tell you how, so you're going to have to perform all of these same things on your data set to get the correct numbers. But all of the steps I'll go through will be exactly the same as what you need to do. So first, we copy the end year column to the side and utilize remove duplicates to get all unique years present. Sort the new unique year columns so they're in order. Already we're seeing things that we just talked about. Title the column next to the unique year, count. And then we want to use our count if formula to count how many of each year are present in the whoops. We're counting years, not countries. How many of each year are present in the study? And you can also do this to count countries. And then we want to generate a bar graph to visualize the amount of samples per year. This also would work if we were doing countries. And then going further for lab 2, what if we wanted to look at percent mortality based on the insecticide per year? So this is going into those average ifs or count ifs, where we use multiple criteria. And this isn't in your current lab manual, but you will see this in the future, so we'll go over this as well. All right. So really quick, we're going to switch over to Excel. All right. So here we are in Excel now. So first, we want to copy the end year column. Here's our end year. We want to highlight it from the top, like we discussed. And we can either hit Control C, or possibly better, because not everybody can do that, especially if you're on an Apple, right click, hit copy. And then we're going to select the first cell in column P just because I wanted to put it there. And we're going to hit paste. We're going to do just the values. That's fine. All right. So now we've got our new column. And we want to go to, again, here's the data tab. Usually you'll start off on home. So this is what it looks like normally. Then you want to hit data and remove duplicates. So what does that bring up? It brings up this window to delete duplicate values. My data has headers. You want to make sure that's checked. You want to make sure your end year is checked. You hit OK. And look at that. We've got this nice short list, and we've got this guy here, which we don't want. So we're going to delete that. But you see it's all out of order. So let's highlight our numbers, just our numbers. We're going to hit sort, and this is the new window that pops up. We're going to uncheck my data has headers for this one because I didn't include end year. And we're going to make sure we're saying smallest to largest here. And there we go. We have a list of years in order for our end year. All right, so next we want to title the column next to the unique year column. This is our new column, Q. We're going to type count. So just click it and start typing, and it should put it in there. Now, we want to use the count if formula to count how many of each year are present in the study. So how are we going to do that? Start by hitting equals, because this tells Excel that we're using a formula, and type count if. And you'll see that it pops up with options that we could choose if we wanted to. We're going to do count if, and you hit that first parentheses, and it tells you what it wants. It wants a range and a criteria. So the range is what we're counting. So we want to count end year. We're just going to hit C again, and it auto-populates. It gives us that whole column. Hit comma. And then our criteria, what are we looking for? We want it to look for 2010. So we're going to select 2010. We don't type it in. You could, but in this case, we're not going to. 2010, and parentheses, and enter. All right, so it found 9 of our 2010 years in our data. And the cool thing about Excel is that it makes it really easy to autofill things in. So for this case, we're going to mouse over this little square, and you'll see it kind of changes the cursor a little bit. Double click, and it fills it all the way down. If you don't do that, we'll undo it, you could just type this in and do the same thing all the way down. And year, comma, and then our year that we're looking for, 2011. And enter. And there, it found 4. So let's just fill that in. And what's cool about this is you can double check by when you double click on this, it'll highlight the cells that you're looking at. So we're still looking at our end year. We're still looking at the year 2015 here. Great. Everything looks good. All right, now that we've got our data, we need to generate a bar graph to visualize the amount of samples per year. So the first thing we'll do is we'll highlight all of our data. We'll go to recommended charts. All right, and what we want to see is these column charts. This is the one that we want to see. And this one actually gives us a nice color so we can really see the separation between the years. Or this one puts the years right under the axis. So we can just do that one for now. And here is our count of samples per year based on my data set. Now remember, this is not what you will see. There will be differences in this data set, but there should be some sort of curve. There should be some years that have more, some years that have less, and which years have the most will be different for you. All right, so that is our first chart. So now, if we want to go further for lab 2 or for other labs and utilizing different, more complicated methods, what we're going to do is we're going to look at percent mortality. So for this one, we want to start by copying the end year again. Hitting copy, we're selecting everything, copy our end year, and we want to put this in column M. So just paste. There it is. Again, we want to go to our data tab and remove duplicates. My data has headers. It's the end year. Great. And again, we're going to get rid of that NR. And let's sort this. And we're going to say my data has headers this time because I did include end year, smallest to largest. So again, we've got our years in order. Now we're going to go to insecticide class, select a column, hit copy, and we're going to go to column P. That's where I want to put it right now. And we're just going to paste and again, remove duplicates. My data has headers. Okay. And we're left with 2, 3, 4 values. So now we're going to do something a little bit trickier. We're going to highlight these guys, just the numbers. We're going to right click and hit copy. Then we're going to click into Q1. We're going to right click and we're going to look for these paste options. And we have one that says transpose. And this is going to automatically put my years across the top. So we're creating our table like we did before, but this one has multiple columns. So we want to be able to do this quickly. All right. Now into Q2, we're going to use our average ifs. So average ifs, again, this is multiple criteria. And this one starts with our average range. So what we're looking for is percent mortality. I. Then we're going to look for criteria range 1. So we want to look at insecticide class. Percent mortality by insecticide class. And the criteria we're looking for in this case is our pyrethroid, this guy right here. And then our next criteria, we want to look at our end year. What year did those samples take place? And we're going to select this guy up top. And that will give us a response. However, we may notice that as we go to fill in, oops, let's undo that. As we go to fill in everything, it sort of breaks really fast. So we have to fix this a little bit so that certain things stay in place. And the way we do that in Excel is adding these dollar signs. We want to make sure that our percent mortality does not change. We want to make sure that our insecticide class criteria does not change. And we want to make sure that our P, we don't want this column to come over with us. We want to keep looking in this column, but we do want the number of the cell to change. So we want it to keep going down. So we just put that P there, or the dollar sign in front of the P. We do want our end year to stay the same. And in this case, we want to keep looking in our first row, but we want to look in different columns every time. So we only fix the one in place. And you'll see we still have the same answer here. So Excel doesn't really see those when it's calculating our values, but it does when we start to drag things around. So you'll see that this is now populated, though there are still some that have div divided by 0. This is an error, but these are real errors that happen when our formula is definitely correct here, but something else is causing this. So what this essentially means is that there's no values found that satisfy this formula. And I want you to think about, why could that be? If we did the formula correct and all of our other calculations are working properly, why might this equal 0 or be unable to compute because it couldn't find any values? All right, so we've completed our chart. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and hit 0 for these guys so that we don't have anything that's going to mess up our charts. So I just filled in 0s for those. We've got our insecticide class. We've got our full chart, our table done. So how do we make a chart with this? Let's go back to Insert. Oh, we can do Recommended Charts again. And in this case, we definitely want a line chart. So let's go to the lines. And we can see this is pretty messy, but this is what we would expect to see. Our chart title. So let's go ahead and insert that. And we can see here, this has got our different series in red. Each of those represent a line, and you can see that they're titled down here. And we've got our X values in the purple. They're across the bottom here. And in the blue, these are our Y values for each of the series, and that's what's making up all of these lines. So looking at these trends over time, you can see that the percent mortality is represented on this chart. So we want to change this. Percent mortality by pesticide class over time is what I would title this one. All right, and again, this is going to be different than what you will see if you do this because my data set is slightly different. So your chart will not look like this. It may look similar, but it will have differences. All right, guys, I hope that helped. Thank you so much for paying attention. And if you have any questions, you want to go over this further, let me know. Thank you.